Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the conversation series. I am thrilled to be in person today with Dr. Terrence Ruth. He's got a Wolfpack heart, which I love. He's an NC State professor. He was a 2022 candidate for mayor of Raleigh. He's the host of brand new Illogical by Truth podcast. We were just talking about it. I was like, welcome to this very, very large world. And it is a very large world. But Terrence, I'm so thankful to have you here with me today. And I'm gonna let you introduce yourself more.
Not a problem. One, thank you, Daniel, for having me and allowing for me to be in this beautiful space. You know, I when I started the Illogical podcast, I was really coming out of that election, and there were several questions that I couldn't answer during that season.
Yeah.
And from that, it birthed me into that world.
Yes.
But outside of recording and creating that podcast, I was just a family man. I have a son that's 9 and going to the 4th grade, and a wife who is active in the city.
Yes.
Often at wonderful restaurants.
She's a badass. We have had Kiara on here, and my God, she's a badass.
And what I appreciate about sort of my family is that they provide strength where I need it. And so Kiara has an authentic story that's pretty dynamic.
Yeah.
And most people who hear her story realize her significance in the world and also in our family. But I'm a professor at State, been there for about 8 to 9 years. I teach in the School of Social Work and Africana Studies.
Okay.
So I teach research and evaluation, and then in Africana Studies, I teach African American leadership.
Okay.
One of the courses that I love the most is African American leadership because it goes into the crevices of the profiles that people normally overlook or homogenize. And then also, I've been a part of the community for some time. I've been an alternative school principal. And alternative school means you deal with kids who are suspended. So most of my kids are in communities that most people fear and in communities where most people avoid. But I'm attracted to that space. There's something about communities that have resilience and grit that you will miss if you don't touch, those particular areas. But also those schools allowed me to see the most amazing talent and hidden treasures in our city. And so, that's my story. I'm a teacher, both in public school and at NC State, a family person, and then I'm entering that universe of podcast world. So I'm learning.
I love it. And I want to start with your journey and how you became passionate about running for mayor and government and where that passion began for you.
Yeah, so I have a philosophy around leadership that I really explored in the podcast. It's a philosophy around Ella Baker's view, which was different than Dr. King. It didn't stand completely adverse to Dr. King, but it was different than Dr. King. It was a leadership that said that we need to decentralize and not have a hierarchy of leadership, but that leadership is in the people. And if we have strong people, then we don't need one strong leader. And so I actually believe in that philosophy. And so as a young child, my parents always had me in community. That was a part of our upbringing. I don't know a time in my life where that was not a norm. And so for me, community was family. And so as I grew up, that became a part of my career. And so I ended up going to get my bachelor's in Atlanta, where a professor, her name is Dr. Moma now. At the time, her name was Dr. King. And she was the adjutant to Bernice King, Dr. King's daughter. And she just said, I'm a mentor you. I'm a pour life into you. And she is the first person that broadened my idea of community to mean social justice. She introduced me to Coretta Scott before she passed away. I had a chance to introduce Senator Lewis or Representative Lewis, late John Lewis, when he came to our school. She sort of thrust me into not just community as a sense of connection, but the struggles of community.
Okay.
Like, how do you move beyond surface engagement to seeing the pain in which people are dealing with every day?
Okay.
And after that, I ended up teaching at a school, a juvenile school.
Yep.
And when I arrived, the kids were marching to class with sort of, it was almost like military or prison garb on.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, you don't get exposed to that universe.
Yeah.
You normally see a traditional public school, the bell ring, all the kids freely move. In this space, every movement was controlled.
Interesting.
And that was my introduction to public schools. I spent more time in a movement restrictive space of learning than I did in a free roaming learning. And that really formulated how I view the world. I began to ask questions.
Yeah.
Why are we producing this outcome
in
our neighborhoods? Why are we producing these outcomes in our communities? And the people that I'm talking about were my students.
Yep.
I was getting brothers and sisters and uncles and cousins and sons. And so there was a family generation that was traveling through these juvenile detention centers. And so the question is, why are we producing that trend?
Right.
And how do we stop it?
Yes.
And so that really birthed my exploration of higher learning. That's when I went to get my master's in education. And then I ended up getting my PhD in public affairs.
Okay.
So it takes policy and you're given the tools to sort of drill that down to the ground.
Yep.
And so I was able to get formal training around policy.
Yep.
And then I was able to just live a life that was embedded in raw community pain, I would say.
Okay.
And from there, I took some courses on candid, like IOPL, Institute for Political Leadership.
Yep.
They teach you how to navigate as a candidate. And then from there, I listened to the people. And so people began to say, we need your skill set for this moment.
Yep.
And so in that, that's what birthed my announcement in 2021.
Okay.
I did a whole 2020 virtual tour of the city, just listening to different people. And then in 21, we made our announcement.
Okay. Going back to your point on community real quick, because I was actually just having this conversation with somebody. Community today, when I'm looking around, even when I think back to my childhood, very different than community was, very different. And even as you have a 9-year-old son, and you went through a different community, how do you approach, we grew up, I always say, I always loved when I grew up because we grew up biking, walking everywhere. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have any social media. We grew up in a very cool time. How do you approach, people who are growing up today and people who, like yourself and myself, who grew up in a time where those things just, we don't have the same growing up experience?
Yeah, community is a very, in the academic world, community is very difficult to define. Most people assume they know, and most people assume that they're experts on that term. But if you actually go to try to understand that term, that concept, there's books and articles written on the term community. And so your question is a very relevant question that we should be asking more often. So for me, community had different layers.
Okay.
My parents were military parents.
Okay.
So you were a transient community member. So
you are moving. You are moving.
You're in home to home, school to school, house to house. So you're transient. You're engaging at different levels of community. And most of the time, you're fitting in where you observe and see and you plug in. The risk is not as high because you may not be there the next year.
Right.
And so I was in a very transient family and community, which was much different. But once we landed in a place, community was in proximity.
Okay.
So that bike riding, that playing tag, football,
whatever it may be.
All of it was in proximity.
Okay.
We have reached a time where kids will be born with a device and they will leave this earth with a device. And it's a device that's personal to them.
Yep.
You can track their location through that device. And so because of that, we are now seeing, I believe it was the Nielsen report, that kids are spending more time in virtual community than they are in physical community.
Okay.
And it's not just community abstract. They're spending more time in virtual community than they are with their immediate family. So the kids are in community, in relationship, and I call it Never Neverland because there's no adults in that space. There's no engagement with that space. When I began to first see that pattern, I was a middle school principal, and most of the friction or celebration from students happened online, and then it was acted out when they arrived to the school. It used to be that something happens in the neighborhood, and then it arrives to school. No longer is it the neighborhood; it's the virtual neighborhood that things happen, and then our investigation almost always led to social media. Back in the day, you call a parent and
what the world is going on?
And so for me, there's a way in which we must expose him to in-person relationships, and then also expose him, help him have morals, principles, and character entering in that Never Neverland community. We realize that in that community, there's class. There's pre-assumptions in these kids. Even in the video games they play, if you don't have certain characters, they call you poor. So their community is much different. And so for me, exposing him to a broad range of that definition, I believe is the job that me and my wife have for him.
It is so funny. And as you're talking about it, and as soon as you said it to like the virtual communities, and when you were saying when we went to school, that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, you're getting on the school bus, whatever happened on the school bus, it was like the drama would come right with you. That's what I was thinking. And so I totally resonate with that. And it is so interesting myself. I mean, I'm 26, but hearing how kids are growing up today from a 9-year-old perspective, I don't have that insight into it. So it's so interesting for me to hear. I have cousins who are 16, 18. So I have a better scope into that side of the family than I do the younger generation that's still coming in. So it's so fascinating to me to hear what is at their fingertips right now and what they have access to and how they are communicating and working with other kids. It's so interesting to hear how we are developing in the world.
It's a radical concept for me to put my mind around, only because when he engaged in relationship with my son, he's going to have more information about that human being than I would have had at that age, because I would have had to talk to you. I'd had to ask you what's your favorite color. But now you can read a person's profile, or you can read about a person or look them up and learn more about them before ever talking to them or meeting them in person. And that's just a different way of engaging someone when you know more than what we historically would know about you. So it is a different. This is a radical
weird.
change.
It's weird for all of us who grew up in it, and like you were saying, actually have to like ask somebody their favorite color instead. Now, you always hear the conversation women are going in, like our FBI agents when they go in the dating world, and I'm like, when did we go from this different world? I want to hop into you running for mayor. And I think a lot of us have this very big picture of what running actually looks like. But can you take us through what actually running for a position like mayor looks like?
I always encourage individuals to first explore who you're representing. And I say that well because I say that often, and I mean it, because some individuals engage in campaigns because they're trying to elevate to a position that they think that they should be. But I think our democracy runs well when the candidate is becoming a student of the group that they are attending to represent. And so I use that word with all authentic meaning to the word student. I have a PhD, but that means nothing when I enter your community. You're the expert to your conditions, to what zoning cases will impact you, to the road, the speed, the traffic, the foot and car traffic around your community, the safety around your community. I'm coming to learn. And so I think during campaigns, you should be a student, and then you should reflect whatever those concerns are in office. That should be your first step.
Right.
And then in that first step, your question should be, do you want me to represent you? It should be something that you're seeking permission.
Yes.
Most people come in and say, this is what I want to do. And I would love your endorsement for that. I think it should be the inverse. I think the power should be held in the community, and you should be going to that power to ask if you are the person needed for that position. And I think that's probably the most important step. Because after that, you could fail in many areas if you don't get that right. But after that, then you get a team. That team usually have different sections. There's a campaign manager, and then if it's large enough, there's a deputy campaign manager. You have a treasurer. The treasurer is really, really important. The treasurer is really, really important. And you want a really close relation. You, the human being, want a really close relationship with that human being. And then after that you have someone who's over sort of canvassing, voter outreach, and then you have a team that's over policy. All of them are important, but the treasurer actually reports to the state and to the county. And so you want to make sure that that person knows what they're doing. There's training, so I don't want to scare no one off from this training. They teach you how to do it, and it's something anybody can do. And don't let members of your community distract you from wanting to be a candidate. Most people make it a daunting, and so we lose quality people because the fear of the weight of that. It is a sacrifice. That's why it's a public service. It is a sacrifice. I don't want to minimize that, but you already have the qualifications. There's a website that says this is what qualifies you to run for a position. If you meet that, then you're sufficient. You don't need 3 PhDs. You don't need to have taught a course. You don't need. And I say that because there's some amazing human beings that would never enter that space. And when I was running, we had campaign events, and there was some individuals that have never been to a campaign event. They've never seen a candidate before. They've never seen a mayoral candidate before. And to me, that was disheartening because that person should represent the city, the community. And most people didn't feel welcome in that space. But it's usually a 6 to 8 month journey. And there's a series of events that you put on, fundraisers, social media is now a larger role. I would probably say the most significant role. Most individuals are living life and they don't have time to come to your event. And so the more you give people access to your things, the better. But it is a journey that a team gets around for about roughly under a year, and it's a high intensity 8 months, and that's why your body feels the weight of it. But it's an intense 8 months, and then it releases. And so most human beings can only do that, but so often. So it's an intense month, and then it releases. The last thing on that, on just preparing for a campaign, you have to know who you are. At the end of the story, they want to know who you are. They want to know your story. They want to know your why. They want to know. And most individuals enter in not knowing who they are. So when you're going to the community to say, am I the person with the skill sets? You're coming to say, this is who I am. Do I represent your values, or am I able to execute on your desires for your community? And so know who you are. And when I say that, I mean, I've written a mission statement for Terrance and shared it with people to say, does this reflect who you know? There's a set of values that I've written down. Is this representative of who you are? Know who you are. Do not enter that space without that, because the only thing you're going to do is they're going to give you tasks to learn who you are. So you can do it now or later. But I think that's a significant part. That's probably a step one, is knowing who you are.
Do you feel like, and this is hitting on something that you had said, do you feel like that people, when we think of politics now today, we think of some very big politics where some of us are really then become turned off by mayor or some of these other local positions? have you felt that when you went and ran?
Yeah. So what was unfortunate is I ran into several individuals, groups, neighborhoods that didn't even know what a mayor does.
Right.
They didn't know the relationship between the mayor and the city council.
Yeah.
Most of them have like major city mayors,
Right.
like strong mayors.
Yeah.
Like New York, where it's almost like a CEO.
My God, yeah.
Here you have a city manager
Yes.
mayoral relationship.
Yes.
The city manager is actually somebody you should know.
Yeah.
That person is
Yeah.
running the city. And the mayor is a vote just like every other council member.
Okay.
The mayor here is more of a mouthpiece, a brand ambassador for the city.
Okay.
Whereas in other major cities, they are running. They have their team.
Yeah.
They're running the
Yeah.
entire. Here, you have a mayoral city manager relationship. So
Okay.
the mayor makes policy.
Yep.
The city manager executes that policy
Okay.
day to day. And so most individuals that I've ran into didn't know the function. They didn't know what a mayor can and can't do. And for me, I think that local government impacts you more than any other level of government.
Yep.
However, the noise of federal and state makes the voter assume that weight impacts them more than so you begin to be clumped into a narrative even when you vote. The mayoral selections of section of the ballot was at the bottom. It was near the bottom or the second page.
When everybody's really tired of bubbling in all of those answers.
Yes. And so local government has a strong history in changing this country. And I'm going to talk exclusively about sort of like civil rights history. So when you look at the bus boycott, that was local. That was city council, commissioners, mayor. And then when that wasn't solved, it went to the governor. And that wasn't solved, went to the president. Most people start listening when it went to the president. When you seen the president send the National Guard to, but desegregating schools, that was the school board. That was local. That was, we're talking about local issues. And the sit-ins, which was started in Shaw University with Ella Baker, that was a local issue. I on my podcast, on one of the episodes, the archivist brings in pictures of the students who came to come sit in at Cameron Village at the time. It was named Cameron Village. This was local. It was a local issue, but most people assume national. And then they take on, or they make judgments based on the brand of national politics. But also there's some messiness in local politics that often distract people. And my goal is to make local politics consumable again. That's my goal. As a candidate, I want to talk about issues. I don't want to be anti any other human being that's running. I want to talk about issues. So many people want to drag you into anti-human beings. I'm not anti. I'm not at any moment during my campaign did I mention my candidate's name. Not at any moment. We only talked about what we're hearing from the community. If that's driving the narrative, people will enter in. But but they're entering spaces where they have to hate somebody, then we're going to lose voters at all levels.
First of all, you and I had talked about this. You had no idea walking into this world what this world was.
That's right.
What do you think of this world of podcasting now?
You know what's amazing? I used to think that people didn't want information like they used to. Like you can't really have a long post anymore online. You can't really recommend a book. They read a little bit, but but podcasts, people will sit and there's a loyalist group.
Cleaning the house, driving to work, cooking dinner, whatever it is, Terrence, there is a podcast for you to listen to.
Yeah, podcasts have become the most comfortable way for people to consume information. And I didn't know that walking in. When I started recording, we recorded our first episode. I'm just thinking, yeah, I put this out, somebody will listen. And then there was a group of teachers on Twitter that said, this is it, and shared it. And it ended up
10%.
Yeah,
10% podcast globally.
Yeah, and I was in my mind, I'm an educator. I knew my network's educators, but I was thinking more like voters. I was just my audience. I was just, the average person who feels scared of, local government. I was like trying to provide clarity for them. So you hear it in our topics. The first one's Ella Baker.
Yes.
Because most people think you have to start big and you need a well-funded oil machine. And Ella was in a basement, a small room at Shaw University.
Yeah.
She wasn't in Atlanta with Dr. King. Yeah. She was in Raleigh, like she put this together, and it was college students. It wasn't the professors at the university.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the provost's office.
Right.
It was, and they changed the world. They changed the world. And so I wanted to start there because the average person should feel empowered to take their journey and not have to start at the mountaintop. You could start in a valley with a small group of people, end up changing the universe. And our topics sort of touch and stay in that lane. So when we talk about housing, we said, why does housing mean so much to the person?
Yes.
Why is it personal?
Yes.
Our cars is not that as personal.
Yeah.
Our bikes are not as personal.
Yeah.
Our clothes may be, but a home is as if you're talking about me.
Yeah.
And so we have an expert on there that traces the earlier notions of home.
Yeah.
And like, why does this mean so much to us?
Yes.
Why would it be part of a national dream, American dream? Why would why would a home not? Why not?
Right.
Why not a healthy family or, but my home is the American dream.
Yes.
And so we trace that back so that people can understand.
Yeah.
Like, where does that come from?
Yeah.
And it didn't come out the clear blue sky.
Yes. Yes. And so for anybody who hasn't listened to this so far, go listen to it. But anybody who hasn't so far, can you set the stage? But also, why now? Why start this podcast right here and right now?
That's such a good question, Danielle, because most people, we're at a point in our country where if the individual or the community is not heard at this moment, I think we'll see more people disenchanted or unsatisfied with democracy altogether. And I think we need to realize who's the target audience.
Yep.
Democracy has an end user.
Yep.
And we can't lose the end user.
Yeah.
And so most of the products we use, people designed it with the purpose of the end user being satisfied.
Yep.
And so with democracy, we must ask ourselves, is the end user satisfied with the product? And I don't know if they would answer that question in the positive. Yeah. And so for me, I think the podcast right now addresses that very thing.
Okay.
This is a moment for you to feel that the black box, the scary secret aspects of local government, you can now see.
Okay.
Now you can feel, someone said they didn't like the word empowered. They said activated or energized. Now you can feel energized around what you know now to engage. And the very last piece is you're sufficient.
Yeah.
In the end, our government doesn't require for you to be a superhero.
Yeah.
You are right now sufficient. And so the podcast tries to touch on these very critical issues that our democracy sort of rests on. It's the soil. And if we don't produce clean soil, I think we're going to lose that end user. And and that's really the outcome of this, this podcast.
And while we were talking about, you were talking about Ella Baker, and the interesting part of this, Ella Baker is no longer with us. Right. She's been dead for quite some time. Right. Why start with her? That's you were just introducing it, but why start with her? Why was it important to start with Ella Baker?
Yeah, so we have giants in history that are unknown.
Yeah.
I would say a Pauli Murray is one of those. A Pauli Murray designed the first restaurant sit-in before sit-ins were popular.
Right.
And like she's still a trivia question.
Yes,
and she wrote books that the attorneys who won the law cases in the civil rights movement, the NAACP attorneys use her brain.
Yeah.
But we still don't know her.
Yeah.
Ella's one of those giants
Okay.
that we don't know.
Okay.
And most people benefit from her work.
Yeah.
Without knowing.
Yeah.
And she would have wanted it that way.
Yeah.
Leadership that produces strong leaders.
Yeah.
And not centralized leadership was her philosophy.
Right.
She did not want to be a queen or a king, but she wanted to make a room, a pipeline of leaders. That's why she started with students.
Yep.
Her name was never on anything.
Right.
She sacrificed her personal life so that those who felt unengaged or not worthy or sufficient, they were empowered or energized. She did that work without her name being placed on anything.
Right.
And so I think her style of leadership is something that we need right now. I think it's a healthy model for our society, for the appetite of our society right now, and also for the historical errors that people may have observed or experienced in government. Her leadership style, I think, is a cure, is a medicine for that. And so I wanted to start with her because I think her framework of empowering people, making sure that people understand that they're leaders where they are, was a framework that we wanted to sort of rest every episode on the podcast.
Okay. Are there other giants you have in mind? Or I'm sure you're working on this already, but are there other giants you have in mind already? Like, we're going to hit this person and what they've done.
Yeah, I think most people don't know Dr. Flood. He's actually here in North Carolina. He's in the, I think, North Carolina Hall of Fame. I know he's in the Raleigh and Wake County Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Dr. Flood is a giant. He's spoken all over the world. He's still alive. He's in his 90s.
Yeah.
But he was the person tasked with desegregating schools. Most people benefited from that. But they don't know what happened. What's the details?
Right.
What was the plan?
Who's the man who did it?
Who went in and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. This was that guy.
Okay.
And his role is invisible because we just sort of assume that it happened right after the legislation.
Yep.
After the legislation was passed, you then had to roll out an action plan.
Yeah.
And for me, I think his role and education is significant, especially for this moment.
Yeah.
Because we're starting to see separation again.
Yeah.
We're starting to see that same pattern that he was fighting against reemerge in communities. Yeah. You're starting to see ethnic-centric schools, class-centric schools.
Yeah.
And the vision historically was that a diverse mixed community produces a better result than a homogeneous community.
Yep.
And schools were supposed to model that same framework.
Yeah.
And so he's still alive. He's still sharp. He's a great human being, but that's a giant that most people won't even know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's so exciting just to be able to sit down with people like yourself who and I say this with every podcast host because everybody has something different that they talk about. And it's so incredible to hear what insight you bring to your community, your audience, who is listening to your podcast. But it's also incredible to hear everybody has so many different journeys. So it's that's what I love about this space. And the ability to sit down like we're doing right now, have this conversation and be able to get to know each other better and what we are passionate about, I think is the beautiful thing I love about podcasting in this world.
That's right. You get an intimate moment with someone.
Yes. I love it. I was like, it's almost very cathartic for me where it's a nice break in the day almost where it's kind of
That's right.
As much as people think this is work, it is still very much work, but it is nice just to be able to have that little bit of time.
Yes.
And actually going back to how community and how we grew up, here we are.
That's right.
Terrence, what's your favorite color?
No, you're right. I mean, you very rarely get to hear somebody's authentic story. Normally you're normally hearing a brand.
Yep.
Or you're hearing a presentation.
Yeah.
But who are you?
Yep.
What are your fears?
Yeah.
What are you struggling with?
Yes.
And I what I love about some of the characters in history that we're talking about,
Yeah.
they wrote journals. We
Which I
can
love.
see what Ella was afraid of. We can see what Pauli Murray was afraid of.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's those moments in which you see where somebody was anxious,
Yeah.
because it humanizes them.
Yep.
So that you can say, I can do that too.
Yep.
But if they're a superhero, if they're superhuman,
yes,
then you feel scared to even walk that journey.
Yeah.
I don't think Ella wanted anyone to elevate her to the point where you wouldn't follow her
Yeah.
footsteps.
Yeah.
And so we must be authentic and human.
Yes.
So that people can do
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah. I absolutely love it. And Terrence, just my last question for you is just what inspires you in this very big world?
Yeah, so it's that's a good question. One, I do think that we all contribute to something much larger than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that what I'm doing in the world is a contribution. It's not the end product. It's not the silver bullet. It's not the superhero act. It's
right.
my role in this larger community.
Yes.
And then a subcategory to that is my role and allow my son to see his role in the larger community.
Yeah.
What is the example that he will look at and say, I'm doing this because I saw my dad do this.
Yes. yes.
Actually, my eyes was there when I watched him. And so there's several layers to it. We're complex beings. We have a soul.
Yeah.
We have hopes and desires.
Yeah.
And so for me, there's a spiritual aspect of it, and then there's a physical aspect of it. But in the end, I just want to create a contribution.
Yeah. I was just talking with a guest, and actually, as you were just saying that and leaving something for Miles to be able to see, he had said he was leaving breadcrumbs for his kids.
That's good.
And I had said, as simple as that statement is, I was like, I appreciate the depth of it, because whatever you are doing, Miles being able to see what you are doing. Yes. Breadcrumbs, and whatever form it is, every single person is leaving breadcrumbs behind for their kids, for who or somebody who they might not even know, who may be written in history books, to come up behind you and be able to see what you've done. I loved the analogy.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah. I was like, and that one's coming with me. Because I like, you feel that.
That's
you feel that you are those breadcrumbs are being left.
That's right. And I actually know adults who were that child that ate the breadcrumbs. Carmen Kaufman is one, right, in Raleigh. Carmen's parents were amazing.
Yes.
Father was at the drugstore, and the mother was the first Black woman on the school board. I mean, that's an amazing story and trail of crumbs to have to pick up and consume.
Yes.
And so I've actually seen the end product for some of that. You know, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, Terrence, I can't thank you enough for being here with me today. If you have not listened to Illogical by Truth, please go listen to it. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the streaming platforms. Go give Terrence a follow. But I can't thank you enough. And I can't wait to keep listening to all these episodes that you're putting out. It's almost like a history lesson for me getting to go back. And so I so appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely. And I will see you guys back here next time. Bye, y'all.